Chavre, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, freilich, begashmis, und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy and strong, physically and spiritually. Today is Shabbos, Erev Shabbos Kodesh, Parshas Sisa, and it's Shabbos Parshas Parah, and we're going to start with tzedakah as usual. Gedelut tzedakah shemakarev segula Mashiach should come now. We're going to say a prayer. Next, this is a pasuk in Tilim, which we're going to speak about a moiridik medrash that's on this pasuk, and that is Yehili Bisamim. This is Kapitel Kuf Yates, pasuk Pei. Yehili Bisamim Bichukecha Leman Leyevish. May I be wholehearted with your statutes, so that I be not shamed. So the literal meaning is I should be wholehearted. When you're doing the right thing, you should be all in, not a bit, but wholehearted, totally into it. There's going to be a Medrash Rabbi that quotes this pasuk in Parshas Boy, connected to the pasuk of Achodesh Hazel Lachem, in the pasuk in Parshas Boy, where it gives us the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh. We'll soon speak about it in a second, but first, let's make a general comment about today's shir. This week's Parshas Sisa, the Rebbe says something phenomenal. In Tafshin Nun Beis, the Rebbe says something where he says nowhere else, that in this week's Parsha, we see the totality of the Torah. Even though we say, Ha'farba the Kulaba, turn it over, because all is contained in it, even though that's referring to anywhere in Torah, or in general, all of Torah, keep on studying Torah, because that's it. Everything is contained in the Torah. Whatever you have to know for life, all knowledges, everything is contained in Torah. But the Rebbe says that the truth is of the meaning of Ha'farba the Kulaba means that since every single particle, so to speak, of Torah is Hashem Himself, ultimate infinity, so therefore, since Etzem, Kshatatevs Bekulei, Atatevs Mektsosei, Atatevs Bekulei, in a tiny bit of Torah is the totality of Torah. But nevertheless, in this week's Parsha, we see more in a revealed way Ha'farba the Kulaba than anywhere else in the Torah. Wow, that the Rebbe should give such a categorization, Hagdara, on this week's Parsha is absolutely astonishing, amazing. But the Rebbe explains, because in this week's Parsha we have the whole gamut of Jewish history, of Judaism, the story of Judaism, and he says this is Aleph Beis Gimel, see there. And what's Aleph Beis Gimel? Aleph represents revelation. That means everything starts first, with a bang in a good way. Then comes Beis, represents descent and fall. And then comes Gimel, which represents Geula and redemption, elevation, tshuva. And we come to the higher level than we were to start with. Okay? So, and he shows how that is in this week's Parsha, where we have, Hashem gives us the luchos. It's in this week's Parsha where he gives us the first luchos, and then we have the Chet Egel, then we get to the second luchos, etc. See the sikh over there. What I want to talk about today is this idea that Yiddishkeit, and especially in the light of Chassidus, shows us in every single situation the redemptive angle, the positive, and how even with something seemingly, let's say, small, there's no such a thing as something small if we're talking about the positive, but every single thing could bring you to the greatest heights, because that's your really true essence. So let's start off first with a chiddush straight away in the beginning of this week's Parsha, right after it says the mitzvah of Machzor Shekel. He speaks about the commandment to make the kiyur. Yes, what was the kiyur? I think you pronounce it in English the laver. That was a wash basin with which the kohanim would wash their hands before they began their avodah. So if you look on the Seforno over here, which obviously there's an obvious question, if we had already in Parshas Truma, the way we discussed about the menorah, and the shulchan, and the mizbeach achitz, mizbeach hapnim, we spoke about all the furnishings, the utensils, of what the Mishkan was. And then in Parshas, the Tzav, as we spoke about the personnel, the garments of the Kohanim, the ones who served. Why over here it seems like it's mamish made as an exception, michutz lamachnanik, something which comes like as an afterthought, separate from everything else. After everything, it speaks about this kir. So now there's two ways to look at it. It's separate because it's the lowest, or guess what? We look at it the way it's up Chassidus, it's separate, and in a certain sense, it's the greatest. So first, I'll read to you what the Seforno says over here. On the pasuk, Sisa kir, you should make this wash basin, this laver. Gam ze akli lehuske lemayla. This utensil was not mentioned before in Parshas Truma, or even when it spoke about with the Kohanim, which are really speaking there about the Avodah and Tetzaveh, it doesn't mention that they had to wash their hands before they began the Avodah. Gam ze akli lehuske lemayla imshara kelim. This vessel, this utensil, was not mentioned when he mentioned the other kelim, the other furnishings that had to be made to make the Mishkan, what belonged in the Mishkan and the Mikdash. Because this did not generate divinity. This didn't bring down Amshachas Shechina. When a person washed their hands, it wasn't an Avodah that drew down the divine presence of Hashem. All those other mentioned utensils in Parshas Truma were things that whereby through them we brought down Hashem. Mizbeach HaChitzim, Mizbeach HaPnimi, the Shulchan, the Menorah. When a Kohen did the Avodah with any of those utensils, he drew down the Shekhinah. But over here, this was merely a preparation for the Kohanim to do their work. So in other words, when we learn the Seforno, Alpi Nigle, you look at it and you would say that this is lower than the others because it's a means to an end. It's only a preparation. We look into the Ayim Yoim of what we said yesterday, Tezayin Oder Aleph, it says as follows. Rabbeinu Azok Omer, the Alter Rebbe said, Betrumas HaMishkan HaYizov Kesef and Achoshes. In the contributions to the Mishkan, there was gold, silver, and copper. But V'lo Yodover HaMavrik Zulas Mareis HaTzoivos Shemehen Naso HaKir V'Kanoi. But the only items that shone the brilliance were the woman's copper mirrors. Hakir v'kanoi heim aboyim b'achreina mikol kli hamishkan. And though the basin and its stand are listed last among the holy vessels, as the Seforno brings out, as we saw that it wasn't mentioned in Trumat Tetzav, it only comes in Kisisa. V'tashmishoi, but hu bereish kol avodas hamishkan kinos tchiloson b'seifon. He says they were used before all the services in the sanctuary, for the beginning is rooted in the end. Whenever we bring out these words, for the beginning is rooted in the end, as it's explained in Kabbalah, it usually brings out, like for example, if we say, Seif Maisa Olav Machshava Tchila, when we get to the end, that arose in the mind first. So over here we're saying, the fact that the Kiner comes at the end, in a sense, is because it's the most important. It's separate from all the others to bring out how it's distinguished. It's different, it's special. And why? And that constitutes a specialty that you cannot do any of the other avodas that come afterwards without first washing your hands. And over here we come to an irony. In general, this concept. Sometimes we say if something's a preparation for something else, the thing which comes afterwards is greater. And sometimes we say the thing which comes before is part of the preparation, in a way, is just as important and maybe even more important. Where do we see it? So let's first come to another question, which we usually start with all of our shiurim. This week's Parshas Parah. What's the connection between Parshas Parah and Parshas Sisa? We could say one connection is this idea of the kiner. What's the kiner? The kiner is about washing. Washing is usually connected to come to a higher level of holiness. You could divide it into two levels. One is to take away the dirt, clean the laundry. And the other is as a preparation to the next level. And the truth is, it's technically two steps, but it could be seen as coming together, and that the second level is only positive, like surmera, turning away from evil, and asay tov, doing good. So, and it's not a contradiction. Now, how do we see the connection to Parshas Parah? Is it getting back to the pasuk that I mentioned before about Yehi libi somim b'chukecha, the pasuk that I said in Tehillim. Now, listen to the Medrash Rabbah. Before I say the Medrash Rabbah, boy, there's a question why we have the order of the 4 weeks. We have Parshas Shkolim, we have Parshas Zocher, and the Parshas Shkolim we read from Sisa, the beginning of this week's Parsha. Parshas Zocher we read the Parsha of Kiseitze about Amalek. Parshas Parah we're going to read in Zeis Chukas HaTorah about Parah Aduma today, this Shabbos, and then comes Parshas HaChodesh Lachem, and Parshas Boi. So now it's not a shir to explain the order of all the 4 Parshas, just the last 2. Why don't we read Parshas Parah before Parshas HaChodesh? And there's a Yerushalmi that says that first we have to have Taharos and Shal Yisrael, the purity of the Jewish nation, and then we can get HaChodesh. HaChodesh is connected to Chodesh Nisan, which is connected to Korban Pesach. I don't want to get into the big question over here about the dates. We'll leave that for another shir. But this is the simple pshat in the Yerushalmi. First we have Parshas Parah. We have to become purified, because only if you're toir could you partake in the Korban Pesach. So first we have Parshas Parah, the water, the formula of the Chukas HaParah made us pure to be able to eat from the Korban Pesach, which comes next. Now, guess what? So now let me ask you a question. Which is greater? The concept of us getting purified as a preparation so that we should be able to eat the Korban Pesach? And maybe the Korban Pesach is higher? Or is the Parah Aduma higher? Because we can't eat the Korban Pesach without the Parah Aduma, without becoming first pure. And there's a medrash that says quite clearly, explicitly, this question, and says that the Parah Aduma is greater. This is the medrash I'm reading to you. He brings down Yehi libi somim b'chukecha, in your statutes. So you could say chukecha is a minimum of 2, and this is what the medrash says, that chukecha ze chukas ha-pesach v'chukas Parah Aduma. It goes on chukas ha-pesach and chukas Parah Aduma. Lama, why does it go on both of those two? Sheshneim deimim zeh lezeh. They're similar. The Parah Aduma and chukas ha-pesach, the Korban Pesach. B'zeh ne'emar zeis chukas ha-pesach. There's a verse that says zeis chukas ha-pesach. Ub'zeh ne'emar zeis chukas ha-Torah. And there's another pasuk that says zeis chukas ha-Torah. V'yata idea eiz chukah gdei l'mizu. We don't know which one's greater than the two. By both it says the same lashon, chukas. So the Medrash then says, Moshel, if you want to know which one's greater, Moshel l'shnei mataynis doim Yisrael mahalchi shtein ka'achas nirei shavis migdei l'mizu. This is comparable to 2 noble women, similar noble women that are walking together, and they look the same. Who is greater? And the Medrash answers, Oisa shechaveta malava isa ad beisa. The one who's accompanied to her home, and the other one follows behind her. Kach bepesach nema beichuko bepora nema chuko umigdela hapara. And that's what he says of the Medrash concludes. Even though it says by both Chukah, the Parah Aduma is greater. She'ichle Pesach tzichem lo. The one, if you want to eat the Korban Pesach, you need the Parah Aduma. Shenema v'lochol atome me'afarsh sreifas hachatos. So in other words, the Korban Pesach follows the Parah Aduma. Therefore, the Parah Aduma is greater. It's like the Korban Pesach is accompanying the Parah Aduma. So therefore, the Parah Aduma is the greater one. So this is something which you could be debatable about it. Let's say the one that comes second is greater because maybe that's the whole purpose, or the other way around. The one that you need in order to come to that is greater because that means that thing that comes later needs the first thing to come before. So in any case, I can't give a definitive answer. All I could say is over here we see the importance. Let's go back to the kiyur. We have to stress the importance of preparation. Even though the Medrash over there says clearly that the Parah Aduma is greater than the Korban Pesach, and he says it clearly, and according to Chassidus, the explanation is also to show on the idea of Bali Tshuva, because the Parah Aduma represents a person who became impure, and then he became pure. I'm not going to go elaborate on all the Hasidic discourses about that. So one idea behind it is that the idea of the avodah of tzaddikim, the idea of the avodah of Bali Tshuva, the repentant, who first was unclean and then becomes clean, is greater than the avodah of tzaddikim, which is more the concept of Korban Pesach. Okay? But for today's talk, what I want to bring out is this paradox, the irony of how in Judaism, everything is of primary importance. In Yiddishkeit, everything is of supreme importance. There's nothing small. A preparation for something is also essential. Not only that, it could be considered even greater. As we see the way, there's on the one hand, the way the Seforno explains what the kir is, that it's of less stature, and therefore it's separated from all the others, because it doesn't bring down the Shechina itself, or, as the Alter Rebbe brings up Shat, the opposite way. It's an essential thing that must be used as an introduction to every avodah. So in a certain sense, it's like even more important than any avodah. No avodah could be done without first the kir. And as the Alter Rebbe himself says, the highest levels is connected to Sefer, and the thing which is mentioned last in the Torah, which is kir. So this is the lesson. Tiyazoi. Whether this way or that way, it brings out the importance of preparation, of making a chana. And you know what? I don't know if I'm going to speak about anything else because there's a couple of stories. You know what? I'll still speak about one more point. But first I'll say the stories connected to this. There is another Hayom Yom, which is the Hayom Yom of 18th of Tammuz. Hayom Yom, I want to bring out the point of this Hayom Yom about the importance of preparation. You know, in English there's a couple of famous sayings. Prepare your work. Prepare your work. I forgot how it goes already. I forgot that one. Okay. Those that fail to prepare. It's another saying. I forgot there's two sayings. Oh yeah. I forgot it again. Plan your work, work your plan. That's one of them. Those that fail to prepare fail something. So in other words, in Yiddishkeit, there's a famous expression, Kol Dover Choshu, everything which is precious needs a preparation. Just like we have, like Abba Pesach, right away we say Purim, Shloshim Yoim Lifnei Chag, 30 days before the Yom Tov, we have to start learning the halachas. Right now we're holding about 30 days before Pesach, we start learning the halachas of Pesach. And this is very important in contrast to today's generation. It's all about instant gratification. They start learning, they start getting a bit spiritual. It's not working for me, I don't see it happening, I don't feel it. I'm not there yet. Of course not. You think it happens automatically? Some things take months, something takes hours, something takes years. So there's Hayom Yom of Chai Tammuz, the 18th of Tammuz, that says that there was a chassid of Moshe Velenker, and it says that Moshe Velenker 3 years, Moshe Velenker hat sich Meichen gewöhnt zu Yechidus beim Alten Rebbe. He prepared himself to go into Yechidus in the Alten Rebbe. Und nachdem ist geblieben 7 Jahre in Liozna, and then he remained 7 years in Liozna of bringing the Yechidus and Avodah B'Peil. To take that private audience and instruction and guidance that he got from the Alter Rebbe and to internalize it and to apply it. It took him 7 years to successfully internalize, integrate, and apply what the Alter Rebbe told him about Yechidus. So we're talking about 3 years he prepared himself just to go into the Alter Rebbe, and then 7 years to work on it. So that's 10 years, the story of one Yechidus. Then there's another story in Sefer HaSichos of the Friedrich Rebbe Tov Shin, page 85. It speaks about Rabbi Yaakov, and it says over there that Rabbi Yaakov, before he went to Yechidus and Alter Rebbe, he prepared for 2 years. But then, on the way that he was traveling to Alter Rebbe, he came to a town called Kazan, and he met a chassid called Reb Shol Kazaner. And he told him, Reb Shol told him something that he heard from older chassidim, that the Alter Rebbe said the following word. In the beginning, when the Alter Rebbe started his path, the Alter Rebbe said the following word on a pasuk in the Megillah where it says, Shisha chadoshim b'shemen amor v'shisha chadoshim b'psomim. It says that those that were contestants to become the queen by Achashverosh, they soaked themselves 6 months in the oil of myrrh and 6 months in aromatic spices, psomim. So in Chassidus it means, this chassid told Isaac Hommeler that the Alter Rebbe once said that what does it mean 6 months b'shemen amor and 6 months in psomim? That 6 months the person spent in the Isbonis would bring to merirus amitis. Shemen amor is meloshen merirus. He had 6 months contemplating how a person comes to a seriousness, a sense of dissatisfaction in a good way, demanding for yourself more to accomplish more. And then 6 months b'psomim, das meint dem tuf tam in asog elikus. And 6 months you were meditating about the beauty, the geschmack, the enjoyment, like when you have beautiful aroma. But those darf all sein ha'achona zu Yechidus. These 12 months, 6 months, meditating on demanding more from yourself in the sense of dissatisfaction, and 6 months of learning to appreciate truly the joy and the pleasure of spirituality, that's all a preparation to go into Yechidus. As Rabbi Isaac does the gehert, hat gewart noch a ganze Jahr. After Rabbi Isaac heard this, he waited another whole year, und dann ist gegangen auf Yechidus im Rebbe, then he went into Yechidus Alter Rebbe. So similar to what it says about Moshe Velinker, Rabbi Isaac also prepared himself for 3 years, and this is the idea that the preparation itself, 3 years preparation to go into a private audience with Alter Rebbe, which who knows how long that lasted. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I don't know. But the point is, there were 3 years in preparation, that those 15 minutes, or 20 minutes, or a half hour, whatever it is, should have its full impact. So see the importance of preparation, and that's the concept of the Kir in this week's Parsha. The other thing I wanted to talk about, but it's already late, so maybe I'll just mention it. In Likutei Sichos, page Chelik Yud Aleph, page 179, the Rebbe says a word which is so wild, that with the pasuk where it says that the Eibishter gave Moshe the first luchas, it says Vayitnel Moshe kechalesi l'daber ite b'har Sinai shnei luchas ha'edus. After Hashem learned with Moshe Rabbeinu for 40 days, then he gave him the tablets, the luchas rishonos. And the Eibishter knows what's going on the bottom by the Eden. That means that at the very same time that he gave the luchas to Moshe to give to the Yidden, was the time when the Yidden had already committed the Chet HaHegel. The wife has committed adultery, Kaviyachol, Achmon al-Islam, the greatest sense of betrayal. They served an idol. And at that very time, Hashem still gives Moshe Rabbeinu luchas to give to the Yidden. That's what it says in this week's Parsha. And the Rebbe takes from this an unbelievable Hiron of Hashem, that it doesn't make a difference whatever person we're dealing with. We have to take the lesson that it doesn't make a difference where a person's holding. He could be in the bottom of the swamp, seemingly. He could be stuck in the lowest level of mud and dirt and cement and quicksand, you name it. Nevertheless, we should never hold ourselves back from being mashpia, something of Torah mitzvahs. And on the contrary, that thing which you'll give him now, who knows what it accomplished. Now, even though Moshe had to take those luchas itself and smash it, that's another whole discussion. But still, whatever was accomplished, that had to be accomplished through the first luchas, they still remain. We still have the Shivya luchas, the way they remained in the Aron Levod. But here comes a phenomenal lesson. This concept of the redemptive angle. And I want to bring out a point that Rebbe doesn't bring out over there in the Sicha Nun Beis, Sisa, but in a way, this point of Chelik and Aleph is the most phenomenal lesson. That at the very, very lowest point you could imagine, at the very lowest point you can imagine, at the worst point, you could say, at the worst moment of Jewish history, after the Yidden did the Chet HaEgel, which was done on the 39th day, which Moshe Rabbeinu was in the mountain, Hashem still gives Moshe the luchos. Wow. So even when you're in the lowest of the low, my friend, whatever you are, I'm talking to myself, a day in which you fell, you had a downfall, whatever it is, at that very moment, Hashem is still giving us ammunition, and He's giving us weapons, and He's giving us the power to be able to rise no matter what. So this is another lesson we take from Parshas Sisa, and as the Rebbe says in the Sikh of Nun Beis, that's why the whole Parsha is called Sisa. Even the Parsha which talks about the very worst moments, the Chet HaEgel, but really, really we're only going one way. And what is that way? Higher and higher and higher. Sometimes it seems like there's a bump in the road. Sometimes it seems like we're taking a detour. But truthfully, it's all kisisa. It's all going higher and higher. So the Eibush should help that we're going through now very, very, very special times concerning Iran. And there's miracles that are wow, wow, wow. And our prayer is that it should be od yoter tov, vod yoter tov. More and more miracles. And we should come from Parshas Parah, Taras Neshei Yisrael, that each and every single one of us will make one small move, one small, for you guys, do much more than small, but I'm talking to myself, each one of us will take one small step for Hashem, and the Eibush will make a giant leap for the whole Klal Yisrael, that from Parshas Parah we come to Parshas HaKodesh, Begula Mitzvah Shleima, take of Miad Mamish, posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, your man in Melbourne.